The anime begins with our boy, Lloyd, flying through the skies and summoning his sword. He starts blocking attacks from a mysterious angel. But since our Lloyd is pretty skilled, he drops his sword and starts using Tao's techniques to block the light swords. He then heals his wounds and conjures a double elemental spell, combining them to cause a huge explosion. However, the angel is completely unfazed, while Grimmer watches as if it's just another Tuesday. After clearing the attack, the angel tells him it's useless and that not even repentance will earn him mercy. Before all this, we flash back to see little Ren going to his room to wake him up. However, she can't find him. Suddenly, Lloyd speaks to her from the shadows, leaving her stunned to see he's now mastered her concealment technique, something that took her a whole year to learn. But since Lloyd is a prodigy, it's no surprise. Just then, Ren realizes she's being too familiar with him, so she apologizes and explains she still isn't used to working here. Having been here for only a couple of days, she still isn't used to working for royalty, especially when her master, Silpha, is so strict. However, she's very grateful for everything they've given her and plans to do her best to be a maid he can be proud of. Lloyd tells her she can be informal with him, which makes Ren excited. However, at that moment, that darn Silpha shows up, telling her she absolutely cannot speak so familiarly to Lloyd, asking how many times she has to tell her that a maid should not speak so informally to her master. Ren starts apologizing while Lloyd, for his part, decides to go visit the rest of the guys in the kingdom of Lordost. They're busy with the reconstruction, and we discover that Galilea has now become the governor of Lordost thanks to Prince Lloyd's influence. His father gave him the authority to appoint the governor, and Lloyd wants the place fixed up because it's a great spot for magical research. Galilea thinks that now that he's the governor, he can't let another disaster like the last one happen. The problem is, they don't know how to counter the demons. But then, Grimmer, speaking from his perspective as a demon, recommends they learn divine magic, leaving everyone shocked to discover Grimmer is a demon. He asks them what the hell they thought he was, and they reply they just thought he was a flying goat, and that's it. Indignant, he explains that divine sorcery is a type of magic only devotees of the church can obtain, by taking God's power into their bodies to use its holiness to dispel evil. And even though it sounds like garbage, the truth is, it works. However, the guys are skeptical. After all, they've lived a crappy life. Grimmer says if they don't want to do it, then he and Lloyd will just go. Though Lloyd isn't too convinced either. Grimmer asks him what screw-up he pulled, and Lloyd confesses that, well, he did something, and they ended up kicking him out. But since it happened 2 years ago, maybe they've forgotten. With that, Galilea asks Babylon to go with them, while Lloyd thinks that getting his hands on divine magic wouldn't be a bad idea. A while later, in the capital, Babylon, Ren, Lloyd, and Shiro get to work on joining the church. Lloyd explains they have to fundraise, clean, read scriptures, sing hymns, pray, all that for a good long while to get the celestial army to bless them with divine sorcery. Something that sounds like a real pain to me and probably many others, but oh well. Upon entering the church, Lloyd greets the father, who, upon seeing a young child, thinks it's wonderful that someone so young is coming to church. However, he panics when he sees it's Lloyd, ordering him to get out because he'll never forget what he did 2 years ago. The guys wonder what on earth Lloyd did, but then a nun named Escher steps in, asking the father to forget what happened. After all, 2 years have passed, reminding him that he always says that even if people make mistakes, God will forgive them if they repent and ask for forgiveness. The father isn't convinced, but after seeing the sweet faces of Lloyd and Shiro, he finally agrees, though he only gets one chance at redemption. After that, the kids get their church garments and don't hesitate to start their duties. But after just 7 minutes, Lloyd is already extremely bored of cleaning things, or rather, breaking them. The boy decides to leave, but then Sister Escher sees the mess and decides to help him. After a bit of cheap psychology, she gets Lloyd to fix his own mess. As she leaves, Ren asks Escher what's up with Lloyd, because he's acting very strange. Escher replies that he's actually acting completely normal. He's always been like this, and she's not surprised he joined the church just to learn divine sorcery. The boy tries to play dumb, and she tells them that years ago, Lloyd was always breaking flower vases, since he's so obsessed with magic that nothing else matters to him. On one occasion, after breaking a vase, he asked her to be stricter with him and attack him with her divine magic. And obviously, she refused, since it's only used on evil people. After a while, the boy summoned a demon to cause chaos in the church. Also, he could get the sister to use her divine magic so he could study it, which did not work. Resigned, he had to dispel his spell. After that incident, Lloyd confessed he was responsible and the church expelled him, which makes everything click for the boys. Since then, everyone at the church started calling him the spawn of the devil, but she's sure that's not true. She recalls that when they used to sing together, Lloyd would mesmerize everyone with his enchanting voice, which motivates her to invite him to the recital during the communion, which Saria will also be attending. Meanwhile, Lloyd is out in the streets clearing rubble when he notices some bandits harassing a girl, who turns out to be his sister, Saria. The bandits are looking for trouble, though she just asks if they happen to be interested in any instruments. When they say no, she loses all interest and continues on her way, but they stop her. Meanwhile, Lloyd is telling the others that Saria is the fourth princess of the Kingdom of Saloum and a musical prodigy, a master of all types of instruments. However, she's completely disconnected from anything that isn't music, making her a bit difficult to handle, as if he isn't the exact same way. Just then, the bandit tells Saria he's an expert at playing a certain instrument. She excitedly asks which one, and the bandit replies, making women scream. And as he's about to lunge at her, someone intervenes, asking him not to hurt her friend, only to get grabbed herself. The father, seeing the mess, says the recital is now ruined. Hearing about a recital, Lloyd understands why his sister Saria is there. Ren approaches him and suggests that maybe divine magic is cast through a ritual and not a mana signature, since it's said that those who listen to the recital are healed. With this in mind, Lloyd decides he can't let the recital be cancelled. He asks Ren to put them to sleep, and she uses her new technique to control the flow of mana and put only her selected targets to sleep, managing to knock out everyone except Lloyd and his friends. Unfortunately, the bandits get back on their feet and charge at them. Babylon thinks he'll have to put them to sleep himself, but Lloyd stops him, since causing a big commotion could wake everyone else up. With a single move, he teleports the thugs far away from the place, shocking Ren and Babylon, since Lloyd is now using Jade's teleportation magic. A little later, Lloyd tells the guys that their companion Babylon scared off the thugs, while Babylon himself can't stop trembling as he remembers his beloved leader's magic. Just then, Saria approaches Lloyd. A bit nervous, he greets his sister, while she just wonders if he's her little brother Lloyd. They can't believe his own sister didn't remember him, and Escher tells them that it's actually surprising she remembers him at all, because even within her own family, Saria only remembers people who have some connection to music. Ren asks if Lloyd plays an instrument, and Escher says no, but when it comes to singing, he's on another level. Just then, she remembers the invitation and invites him to the recital. However, Saria rejects the proposal because her brother hasn't practiced enough, and she doesn't want him to ruin the performance with an improvised accompaniment. Before heading to the stage, she asks her little brother to watch the recital very closely. Lloyd feels a bit pressured, but he tells the others they need to be at the recital, while Grimmer explains there's a chance divine sorcery is cast through a ritual and not a mana signature, since rituals can produce similar phenomena through song or dance. At that moment, Babylon and Lloyd feel a strange sensation, wondering if it was just their imagination. A while later, with everything ready, the girls begin the recital, their wonderful performance leaving everyone in the venue shocked and amazed. A thrilled Lloyd decides to investigate the recital up close, while Grimmer comments that this is definitely divine sorcery. He summons his sword and slices off a fragment of the magic, wondering what kind of mana signature it is. It looks like some kind of magical notation made of geometric figures, something he's never heard of. Its effects are the same as healing magic. Lloyd decides to investigate further and asks Grimmer if he's ready, as he seems to be affected by the magical ritual. Grimmer replies that he feels a tingling sensation because the one who cast the spell was Escher, who doesn't have that much mana. Lloyd becomes more and more interested in divine sorcery, as it has an unknown mana signature and an unreadable language, which only encourages him to investigate further. Besides that, something has been bothering him. Ever since they arrived at the place, he's felt a gaze, and when the recital started, it intensified. Grimmer tries to sense it, and upon realizing, panics, wondering where it's coming from. Lloyd tells him it's coming from above, from very high up. So he tells Babylon and Ren that he will be back in a bit and teleports to the source of the gaze, amazed during the journey at how far away it was. Lloyd ends up breaking a strange barrier, which immediately regenerates and appears in what seems to be the kingdom of the heavens. After exploring a bit, they found a mysterious temple and the angel who had been watching over them all this time, Jihariel. The scene continues with Lloyd wondering what the peculiar man was doing. Below, a complete eccentric looked ecstatic as he listened to Escher and Saria's beautiful melody. Completely mesmerized by the music, he considered going down to join the party. However, his reverie was shattered when Lloyd suddenly threw a piece of cloud, shaped like dung, at him. This left the surprised angel wondering what on earth a human was doing in paradise. Adopting a much snootier attitude, he demanded that Lloyd know his place before introducing himself as the angel Jihariel, an acolyte of the 64 deities of paradise. Annoyed, he asked how they had even managed to reach paradise, explaining that it was a separate world divided by a barrier. Lloyd simply replied that he honestly did not know and that he only wanted Jihariel to teach him divine magic. Jihariel fired back, sarcastically asking if his own beautiful, magnificent face had melted Lloyd's brain, causing him to ask such a foolish question. This, of course, angered Grimmer, who ordered Jihariel to explain how to learn divine magic. If he refused, they would go down and tell everyone that the celestial envoys were nothing but a bunch of perverts who spent their time harassing girls. Jihariel retorted that no one would believe them. Besides, while it was true that he could grant divine magic, he only bestowed it upon those he deemed worthy. Lloyd's pleading only provoked Jihariel further, who responded by attacking with his Luxa magic. Lloyd was ecstatic, amazed to see such a different kind of magic, though it did not seem to do any damage to him. Jihariel quickly realized that Lloyd was not just some lost lamb and that he would have to get a bit more serious. Meanwhile, Ren had grown worried about Lloyd as he had vanished out of nowhere. Babylon urged her to calm down and asked if Lloyd had said anything before he left. Ren recalled that he had mentioned something about a gaze, which made Babylon a little concerned. Since that was not the same thing he had felt, he told her he was going to investigate something. Back in paradise, Lloyd was casually defending himself from Jihariel's attacks, completely fascinated by the strange magic. He observed that the swords were like feathers, yet as hard and heavy as steel. He attempted to absorb them with his spell-taker ability, but it failed to work. He deduced that once summoned, the swords were physical objects, not spells he could steal. Consequently, he launched his own sword, Grimmer, at them. Fascinated and wanting to test their durability, the reckless boy conjured 4 elemental spells. This act terrified Jihariel, who saw that Lloyd's magic was causing cracks to appear in the barrier between worlds. Disappointed, Lloyd asked why Jihariel was dodging. In response, Jihariel replied that his magic was invincible, but he refused to be contaminated by touching Lloyd's vulgar sorcery. Just then, Lloyd vanished from sight. Jihariel briefly wondered if he had run away, but then spotted him perched atop the temple. Lloyd mentioned that running would do no good now, because he was about to truly test the limits of Jihariel's magic. Using Shadow Wolf magic, he teleported his spells directly at Jihariel, hitting him head-on. Grimmer, for his part, was panicking. He recognized that Lloyd could use the same offensive teleportation magic as Gisarm, but in Lloyd's hands, it was far more powerful and versatile. After Jihariel managed to escape the attack, Grimmer told Lloyd that while the attack was impressive, he thought he was going a little overboard and might actually kill the angel. However, Lloyd, with great innocence, told him not to be silly, as the angel himself had said his Luxa magic was invincible. Grimmer argued that he was probably just showing off, but Lloyd told him to calm down, explaining that he would never abuse Jade's power in such a way. He continued to attack Jihariel, while Grimmer shouted a warning that Prince Lloyd did not actually want to kill him, so he had better apologize and teach him divine magic. Jihariel, however, was supremely confident in his ability to escape, declaring that they would never defeat him because he had figured out Lloyd's trick. Lloyd realized that the time between activating the spell and its teleportation was too long and that he needed a more direct way to attack. He concluded that the best method was to hold the spell until the very last second and then teleport it. Just as a confident Jihariel charged at him, Lloyd activated his magic, attacking instantly and shattering Jihariel's own spell. Yet, Jihariel was not ready to give up, boasting that even if it were destroyed, his magic was infinite and could regenerate. This only made Lloyd even more interested in his magic and in testing just how infinitely it could regenerate. "I told you so," Grimmer warned Jihariel, while a terrified Jihariel stammered that he had not meant it literally. An excited Lloyd decided to put it to the test, causing Jihariel to panic and scream that he had been lying. But it was too late. He was blasted by all 4 of Lloyd's attacks, which almost sent him to an unknown fate. Lloyd noticed that Jihariel was becoming more and more transparent. Grimmer explained that ethereal beings like them live off their mana, and if they run out, they disappear. Jihariel thought to himself that while Lloyd had done an excellent job, he had now lost his chance to learn divine magic. Suddenly, Lloyd transferred mana into him, bringing him back from the brink. Jihariel was stunned, especially since Lloyd had just been trying to kill him. Lloyd simply shrugged it off, saying it did not matter. He only wanted to learn divine magic. After being pumped full of so much mana that he became practically chubby, Jihariel began to think. He realized this boy possessed immense mana, unlike any human, all controlled by an innocent child. This was his perfect chance. He told Lloyd he would teach him divine magic, but first they had to make a pact. He asked for Lloyd's hand, and as they touched, Jihariel believed this was the perfect moment. Lloyd was the perfect vessel to fulfill his own desire, to possess his body, get to the mortal world, and spend time with his beloved Saria. Grimmer realized what Jihariel was trying to do, but knew it would not be a problem for Lloyd. Meanwhile, Jihariel was thinking, it's the dawn of a new era, the era of Jihariel. His triumphant thought was cut short when he realized he was trapped in Lloyd's left hand. Grimmer mocked him, pointing out that Lloyd's mana was so immense that Jihariel could only occupy a tiny piece of his palm. An excited Lloyd then asked, "So, can you teach me divine magic now?" Jihariel explained that an angel must engrave their mana signature onto the soul of the future spellcaster, after which a channel is created through chanting or other means. In their case, however, no chant was needed because he was already inside Lloyd's body. Now, it was just a matter of invoking him with his soul. Lloyd gave it a try and was instantly amazed as he understood the principles of divine magic. A worried Grimmer asked if he was okay and if the angel had passed on anything strange. Lloyd replied that he was fine. He had just had a vision of magical language and now intuitively understood what divine magic was. Grimmer quickly put 2 and 2 together. Now that Prince Lloyd had mastered divine magic, he possessed enough power to conquer both paradise and the underworld. But then Lloyd confessed that he was a little disappointed, as it had been too easy to learn. He explained that he enjoyed the process itself, that beyond the result, he loved exploring every step of a spell's construction. He had worn out books trying to understand the why and how of everything. Once he understood it, he said, it was like seeing the faces of those who had created it all. In short, he liked to put in the extra effort. Now, however, it was time to get down to business. He decided to try out the Luxa magic. Jeriel told him to try forming a sword. As Lloyd began, Jeriel reflected that, now that he was inside his body, he could sense that the boy's feelings about learning magic were sincere and genuine. He thought to himself that this child reminded him a lot of the only person who had ever earned his respect. His reflection turned to panic, however, when he realized what a strange thing Lloyd was creating. It looked nothing like a sword. Seeing how enormous it was getting, Grimmer yelled at him to stop at once, because that was definitely not a sword. Lloyd asked why he should stop when he was not even finished. A stunned Jeriel thought that Luxa magic could vary depending on the user's nature and mana, but for it to look like that was something else entirely. He tried to give it shape, thinking it looked a lot like an archangel, but Grimmer yelled at him to get a grip, calling him a stupid angel. If they did not stop that thing, it was going to become a god of destruction. Elsewhere, Babylon was conducting his investigation. What worried him most was the stench he was picking up in the church. While he did not normally go snooping, he felt it was worth a shot if it could help Prince Lloyd in his investigation of divine magic. Suddenly, a man intercepted him, asking if he was lost and offering to escort him back to the recital. Babylon replied that he was just admiring the roses and asked the man what he was interested in. The man revealed he was a pastor whose duty was to guide the faithful who had strayed, though he confessed that even he got lost sometimes. Babylon then asked if that was why he was not wearing a rosary. As far as he knew, clerics were supposed to wear them at all times. Even he, a novice, had been given one. The man conceded that he was right and pulled out a rosary, mentioning that he always forgot to put it on. Just then, Shiro appeared with Ren. The telling detail was that when Shiro saw the man, he panicked, feeling a deep sense of terror. Realizing the situation was escalating, Babylon said his goodbyes, mentioning pointedly that the man's rosary was impeccable, despite his having been at the church for so many years. The pastor, looking at Shiro, commented on his beautiful fur and started moving his hand strangely. But suddenly, Lloyd appeared, asking what they were doing outside the recital. Everyone was surprised. Lloyd walked over very calmly and then left with Shiro. Jeriel, seeing the pastor's back, was shocked. In a change of scene, Lloyd told the girls that the recital had been wonderful from start to finish. The boy was shamelessly deceptive. For his part, Jeriel was emotional and tried to confess everything he felt for the girls, but Lloyd stopped him. Then, Babylon asked Saria if the inner garden was considered a sacred place. She replied that they often used it to bury the pets of the faithful. Babylon understood then. That was why there was a smell of decay. He thought to himself that it was hard to leave the life of an assassin behind, as he always jumped to the worst conclusions. Still, something did not add up. Meanwhile, Lloyd let the priest know that he would be leaving the church. Babylon, seeing that Lloyd had gotten what he wanted, thought he did not need to worry about what happened to this church. Just then, Saria thanked him for saving her that afternoon. Elsewhere, the pastor from before kicked the rosary, commenting that it should have been dirtier, considering he had lost his original one. Just then, a strange hatch opened up, releasing a terrible stench. The man told the creature inside that there was no need to pursue them, but that they needed to increase security in the area because they could not afford any interruptions when the long-awaited day finally arrived. And that's the end of the second episode of I was reincarnated as the seventh prince so I can take my time perfecting my magical ability. Thank you so much for staying on this channel and watching our videos. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel so we can keep you updated with our latest content. See you in the next video.